Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Hirsch, and I'm here today with Marcel Bruch, and we are going to be talking about Automated Error Reporting Initiative, which is now available for any Eclipse plugin. As you know, our Neon release train went out on June 22nd, and you can visit www.eclipse.org/neon to find out more. A bit about Marcel. He leads the Automated Error Reporting Initiative at eclipse.org. He's the project lead of the Eclipse Code Recommenders project and has a strong addiction to analyzing massive amounts of data and finding bugs in code. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Marcel. We do have time for questions at the end of the session, but if there is any urgent question that comes up during the webinar, we will stop to answer that. You can send us questions at marketing@eclipse.org. You can comment on the webinar in Google Hangout as well, and that will pop up in our window, or you can send us a message on Twitter at #EclipseNeon. So I'll pass it over to Marcel.
Okay, so hi everybody. So thanks for the nice introduction, Kat. So best greetings from Darmstadt and my 35 degrees Celsius warm office. So this will be an exciting webinar for me. So I will share my screen directly with you and go to the presentation. So AERI in Neon. So welcome to the webinar. So this webinar will basically be about setting up automated error reporting for your own Eclipse plugin or RCP application. So that's really the point to take away, right? So with Eclipse Neon, every project, so not just Eclipse projects, can now sign up to receive error reports. So no matter if you're writing a commercial plugin, a private or open source plugin, it has never been that easy to receive error reports now with Neon. And this webinar will basically show you different ways of how you can set up the error reporting, and will also demonstrate you how to get a server up and running to receive those error reports and working on those. So the outline is, first I want to start with a short history. So looking back in AERI and Eclipse Mars. And then we will have a larger part about a hands-on section where I will demonstrate how you can set up error reporting for an IDE plugin. And then how you can set up error reporting for your RCP application. And at the end, I will close the session with a short introduction to a free error reporting service that we host as CodeTrails. And show you how you can set up that system just in a few minutes. Okay, so let's start with the history. Looking back a little bit, so as some of you may know, the error reporting initiative started back in September 2014, so around about 2 years ago from now. And at that time, we thought it would be great to receive error reports during the milestone builds only and see what's breaking in there, and have an ability to fix those issues before they go into production, that is, before they go into Mars O. So we introduced error reporting in the Mars 2 milestone, a second milestone, and then later in the 5th milestone, and we got actually some traffic there. So from some users, around about 2,000 error reports per week, from users saying, okay, there's something broken here. And that helped us to improve a few things. But then at some point we decided it might make sense to put this, or to leave the error reporting in the production system for Mars O and see where this is going, to see how many other problems we find in the code base. So that's what we did for Mars O. And you see there that in the first week we got a big jump of getting more than 40,000 error reports per week for Mars O. And you see that those numbers were still steadily growing until Mars 1. So we got a lot of error reports, and we found a lot of issues in the code base. So then with Mars 1, that was the first bug fix release, and we had the hope that actually with the error reports being in place, that the number of error reports should go down. And what happened is actually, well, they went actually down significantly. But as you might guess, well, this was not really an effect of the error reporting, it was just Christmas. Anyway, so we got a lot of error reports, and from Mars 2, we see now some slight degrees of error reports. So there's still hope. Let's see how this goes. But as you may understand, incoming error reports, so many users may send the same error reports twice or 3 times or whatever. So this is not the real great indicators of the performance of error reporting. So this basically just says, okay, there's an adoption rate. So users are reporting issues to eclipse.org. What we find more interesting is to see how many new problems we get per week. So, and this is this figure about, it says, so in the beginning, we got around about 200 new problems or spotted new problems in the Eclipse code base. And with the Mars O release, we got up to 1,000 new error reports per week, new problems that we spotted. So different locations in the code where something actually breaks at some client machine. So this was a little bit disturbing, because we just thought that if we put this into the milestone builds, we would be quite successful and know every problem that's coming up. But it turned out that we just see a very, very, very small fraction of the problems that occur at Eclipse. Anyway, for Mars O and Mars 2, you see that, again, the numbers are falling. So that's basically says that we got many problems in Mars O, and we don't see any, not that many new problems for Mars 1 and Mars 2. So we are on a good way. So what does it mean for problems, say, by release? So we just try to assemble numbers and saying, okay, how many problems did we spot in Mars O, Mars 1, and Mars 2? And this is something I found quite interesting, because for Mars O, we found around about 17,000 different problems or distinct problems in the code base, which is, well, if you say it's the Eclipse IDE in every Eclipse plugin that's participating in the Eclipse release train. So a large number with several million lines of code. For Mars O, we had the Mars 1, we had the hope that the number would be significantly falling down. Unfortunately, it did not fall down that much as we hoped. So we found 16,000 different problems, so around about 1,000 problems less than before. So then for Mars 2, we said, okay, well, what can we expect? And I'm happy to say that we got in for Mars 2 a significant drop in error reports or problems that we spotted. So for Mars 2, we got only 12,000 problematic locations in code, which means that we actually fixed, in absolute numbers, 7,800 problems that we spotted in Mars O and Mars 1, which did not appear in Mars 2 again. And this is, I think, a pretty awesome result of the error reporting thing. And big thanks to the community for reporting all those issues, because this really helped us a lot to improve the IDE quality. So let me briefly tell you what kind of problems we see. So I guess most of the people attending this webinar are Java developers. And so it might be interesting to know what are the most common problems that happen at eclipse.org. I grouped them by, well, into categories. And you might find it interesting that null pointer exceptions are actually the most frequent occurring or reported exception in the Eclipse code base. So if you remember that Eclipse Mars had 12,000 errors, null pointer exceptions make up half of those error reports, which is something, well, you probably now understand why null is probably the worst thing ever introduced to programming. So the point to take away here is you really should take care of null and use all the tools that you get with JDT. So in Neon, if you read the announcements, you saw that the JDT null analysis improved significantly. So please start using those tools, because this will be a big benefit for your plugins. The next group of errors are index out of bounds exceptions. So array index out of bounds exception, string index out of bounds, whatever. So all these nitty gritty details when you do this +-1 and length minus or +1 or whatever, those things apparently fail quite often. Say around about 1,000 problems were just caused by those index operations. So there's not much you can do here, just testing. So make sure that your code actually computes the index values properly. The next group of problems are class cast exceptions or array store exceptions. So I consider those being, in many cases, just, again, programming mistakes. So there's some control flow that's going wrong, and you get an object you did not expect. But they are also luckily easy to fix. So as soon as you know that there is a class cast exception happening, it's pretty easy to fix them by adjusting your code and responding. So that's also the benefit of the error reporting. Since you know that you get class cast exceptions there, you can fix those things easily and quickly. Next group are concurrent modification exceptions. They happen when you iterate over a collection and someone else is removing things in there or adding things in there. So they're also quite easy to fix. So if you know where they happen, you can fix them just in a few seconds in many cases. So the second last group are things like illegal argument exception or illegal state exceptions, which make around about 2,000 error reports. Those are probably harder to fix since you need to know what arguments are coming in, on which state you are. But at least, again, as you know, since you know what's going wrong, or that there's something going wrong, you have a means to fix those things. And the last class are class loading issues, so linkage error, class not found, or method not found errors, which are basically caused by some incomplete version range constraints in your plugin manifests. So this is also, well, this is probably harder to fix than many of the other cases, but at least since you know what's going wrong, you can fix them. And also AERI offers some means to do some class path analysis, which I will not demonstrate further, but just to let you know. Okay, so that's just to give you an oversight of what kind of problems we find. And now I just want to make sure that everyone gets the point that does reporting actually make a difference to Eclipse or to you? And Eclipse Foundation provided a nice infographic for that, which summarizes the success of AERI in just one slide. So in the past 12 months, we received around about 3 million error reports by 350,000 different users. And since Mars 0 to Mars 2, we fixed 7,800 of those problems. If we try to relate that to the number of reporters, we see that F is at that 31%, so 110,000 reporters got at least one of their error reports actually fixed until Mars 2. And some of them got even 60. So really 60 problems fixed in that time frame, which is, I think, pretty awesome. I don't know how many of you filed 60 bug reports and got them fixed. This is a pretty exciting number in my eyes, in my opinion. Okay, so that's the quick introduction to the numbers of automated error reporting. So if anyone has a question, that would be the right moment to tell us about it. And otherwise, I will continue with the setup, setup of AERI in your Eclipse plugin.
So Marcel, we don't seem to have any questions in the queue.
Okay, so that's great.
Yeah, I would keep going.
So then I keep going. I prepared a sample project. I called that org webinar. This is an Eclipse plugin, which basically just contributes a menu which causes an exception. So I will just show you that. So you got that fancy icon over here. So if you click on that thing, you will get an error pop-up saying, okay, there's something going wrong, right? So that's what I use for the demonstration. So in case you don't know the error reporting yet, so this is how it looks like. So as soon as an error is logged in Eclipse, the first time the Eclipse error reporting dialog pops up and asks for your permission to send error reports to Eclipse. If you click on enable, you can fill out the form. You can provide your email, your email address, and you can decide whether you want to anonymize your error reports, like, for instance, removing the messages, etc. If you click on enable, you get a next error reports, next dialog saying, okay, there was an issue logged, and it's asking you whether you want to report this to eclipse.org. If you go on, if you click yes, or let me review that thing, you get that review dialog, which basically contains all errors that have been logged so far, and a text representation of what would be sent to eclipse.org. So in there you see there's my class causing an exception, so throw null point exception handler. That's what I prepared here for that setup. And you can provide some user comments saying it's a critical issue to me because using that menu does not work anymore. So something like, please fix it, and send that to Eclipse. And then you get this short pop-up saying, okay, your report was sent, and you get a link where you can review what actually was reported at eclipse.org. So there you see that's today, was just created a few seconds ago with my name, severity critical, my comment, please fix it. And you also got the ability to update your comment saying, okay, can be added later on. You can save that thing, and committers will be informed about the updated information here. Okay, so that's the quick summary of how error reporting works right now. Now let's go to the setup, how you can use AERI in your own IDE. So basically, AERI offers two flavors how you can extend it. The first one is a 100% declarative approach, and the second one is, say, a 100% code approach. So you're free how you want to extend AERI. It's completely up to you. But of course, I prefer the 100% declarative approach, which is pretty easy to use. So the only thing you need is a plugin XML file. You need to declare an extension in there, and you need a discovery JSON file, which basically tells the client in which error reports your project is interested in. If you got those two elements, then your setup is already complete. So there's nothing left to do on the IDE side. Okay, I will now demonstrate how to set up the error reporting in this declarative approach. And therefore, I will create a new plugin and a plugin XML. So this is the Eclipse configuration. I will now switch to the IDE and demonstrate everything step by step there. So let's close the old presentation, the old tool, go back to Eclipse. I will now create a new project. That project will be called org webinar IDE. It's basically just a plain plugin, so there's nothing generated in there, so make sure it's not a rich client platform application. And just click on Finish, and you see that there's, well, almost nothing in here. So the webinar plugin manifest is open. I will go to the Extensions tab, and now declare the extension to the error reporting. So to do that, I will just click on Add, and remove the Show Only extension from required plugins, so that Eclipse can find the server extension point, which is not yet imported. The extension point is provided by org Eclipse EPP logging, AERI IDE servers. So that's the name of it. And you see the IDE in here. So there's a special part that's just working in the IDE. I just do the double click in here. Eclipse will ask me whether I want to import the dependency. I would say yes, it doesn't hurt. And then you got the basic configuration already prepared. So you could yeah, so that's the, say, 80% of the configuration in an XML file. We have an ID. Of course, it makes sense, something we use internally, but there's a name. Let's call that a project that we need to give. So the Java class that you hand over here is actually the class that does all the I/O and the filtering. So this is something that you can exchange, but you will see that later. In my presentation, I will just reuse the Eclipse class that we use for server connection in IDE server Mars. Okay. Then we can specify a few icons, like the icon 16 pixels and 32 pixels. That's something I will just copy over from the IDE project. And then I will use icons object 16. Same here, going to icons 32. And I will enter a description saying that's my webinar. So, and that's almost all we need. Not exactly. You know that the discovery JSON file has not been specified yet, but yeah, we're pretty close now. So I will restart the application. So just that you see what happened with just the declaration here. So I will go to the configure to the Eclipse settings, error reporting, and there has been this new configure projects icon or button in Neon. If you click on that, wait, there's something missing. So you still see that's only Eclipse here. So that should be the webinar. Let me just check what's going wrong. Okay. So what went wrong? Webinar IDE. Awesome. Plugins. Oh, okay, it's not included. Apply and restart it again. So hoping it will be there now. The preferences again, checking for the error reporting. Configure projects, and there we go. So there's the webinar project with the webinar project description. So that's what we entered in the configuration file. And you see that there is by missing. So there's apparently something missing. A link to the provider of the error reporting endpoint. And there's a configure dialog. So the configure dialog, if you don't specify any special configure dialog, you will get a default one from the automated error reporting, which basically allows you to override your contact information. So if you want to use a different name in there, you can use Marcel Bruch 2, code trail has a different address. You can have different anonymization options. So that's what you can customize by each server endpoint. Okay, so if you now click on Enable, you will get a notification saying, okay, hey, Eclipse wants to make you aware that you enabled error reporting for an external project which is not hosted by Eclipse or by the Eclipse Foundation. We want to make sure that every user knows and understands that error reports that he sends now might go to somewhere else, not eclipse.org. So it's in the responsibility of every project to set up their own error reporting server. And the Eclipse Foundation will not host them for you. But it provides you all the UI nitty-gritty details you need to make that actually happen. Okay, so if the user confirms that, we are fine. And we can continue and send error reports. Okay, so if you now click on the error reporting, it won't work as expected. You still see only Eclipse because we did not complete the configuration for the second for the webinar error reporting service. So we have to go back to the configuration and complete what we started. So to do that, we need to provide a few configuration information. For instance, we need to provide the name of the provider. That's something, let's use HTTP codetrails.com, and then the title of that will be codetrails. Set the provider name in the user interface. And we may also customize the configuration dialog. That's done by using a configure thing, just so you can specify your own dialog in here. And I prepared one in the webinar project, which I want to reuse here. Let me see. So it's a custom configure dialog. So I will add the dependency to org webinar to import it properly. And then go back to the extensions and say, let's import the custom configure dialog. Yep, here we go. Okay, so if I restart things now, we will get the updated configuration with the provider name in there. And so you see by code trails, and you get your own custom configure project dialog with whatever details you want in here or have in here. So if you need something like a GitHub sign up or whatever you prefer, or your company in-house setup, that's pretty easy to accomplish by providing your own custom dialogs. Okay, so that's the configuration part. Now we need to complete the configuration with the discovery. So the discovery file is basically specifying in which information your error reporting server or your project is interested in. So what you see here is an excerpt of the discovery JSON file hosted for eclipse.org. You see there that there's a submit URL, which is the URL where your client should post your information, the error reports to. And you see things like accepted products, accepted plugins, and required packages. This specifies in which kind of error reports we are interested in. So for instance, at Eclipse, the accepted products means Eclipse only wants to receive error reports which were logged in a product from org Eclipse namespace. So every EPP package. But if you have an, say, JBoss or Red Hat or my own commercial product thing, then error reporting won't get any error reports because we just ignore them there. The accepted plugins is a setup that says, okay, we are only interested in plugins from these namespaces that are actually logging the errors. And required packages means on the stack trace, there needs to be at least a single class coming from org Eclipse star. Something to note or to mention is that the ignored statuses section here, which I find quite interesting. So one general ability of the error reporting system is that you can configure it remotely, the clients. So whenever you specify new values in here, so for instance, you say, I don't want to have any java.net error reports, so you can just ignore them here. And the clients will update their configuration every 1 or 2 weeks. And so you have a means to adjust the behavior of your clients with this discovery JSON file. So there are many more options you can do. So this is just to make you curious of what's possible in there. So go for the original configuration at eclipse.org, so it's linked below, and see what else you can configure in there. So for our demo setup, I will just reuse the one that we have. So I prepared one for this presentation, which is located at port 8080 localhost community discovery, which basically says, okay, I'm interested in all products, all plugins, accepted packages, whatever it comes from, but it needs to have org webinar in there. Okay, so I will copy this and go back to the IDE and specify a new link. And that link is has the relationship, this URL where the server connector should download the discovery file. Sorry, but let's give it a title. Okay, so that's all we need to do. So that's the minimum configuration that you need for using your own, setting up your own error reporting. So I will restart the IDE, and now you should see a pop-up saying, okay, we sent an error report to our own server hosted right now at localhost. So we click on the icon, and there you see the first time, okay, the webinar project says an issue was logged. Please send it to webinar project for further triage. So you can go for the details, and you see every icon or every error report is qualified by the provider icon, so that you quickly see where this error report is going to. And you can specify, also here you see the same message. Of course, you can do anonymization of these error reports, like for instance, removing the messages individually. So this will be per endpoint. So when every Eclipse, you may or may not disable anonymization. So it's you can really customize what will actually be sent to the server. Okay, so if you send that, you will get a notification saying, hey, thank you, those reports have been submitted to these 2 projects. And you can click on the submission link, which then takes you to your submission page, similar to the one that you've seen before. And you see here my reporter name, Marcel Bruch 2. That's with the special configuration option that we handed just for this endpoint. Okay, so that's basically how you do reuse the 100% declarative approach. So the next thing I want to show is I call that the 98% code approach. So I will provide a plugin XML, again, the same thing as we did before, but I will have my own server connection in here. And that's all we need, again, to make error reporting work. So if you don't feel comfortable to send any error reports by HTTP requests, for instance, you can implement your own server connection that, for instance, shares them by email. And this is what I prepared as well. So if we got an email server connection in here, and the only thing I need to do for the webinar project is exchanging the class here, and just use the server connection and restart the IDE. And now when I click on sending an error report, my email client, my local email client will pop up with the email report in there. And yeah, so let's click on send. And now you get your email client saying, okay, this should go to support control flow.com, and you get the old text message. So basically what you have seen before in the preview dialog is now available as email, and you can just click on send and send it to your system. Okay, so let me briefly have a look on the implementation of that service. So the email server connection is rather simple. So there's a submit method that we implement that gets a status that it actually transforms into some kind of a report, and then we just set the receiver, subject, body, and message, and put that into a large mail link, which we open with the desktop browse URI method, and send that then and hand it over to your operating system to do the rest. What you've seen here is we can also customize the messages that we send back to the user. So for instance, here, thank you for sharing this with our support team. Or in the beginning, if we are interested in a report, we can also customize the message saying, oops, something went wrong. So whatever you prefer is possible in here. Basically, the interface to implement is the iServer connection. And there you can do whatever you prefer. So the interested method is there. The IDE asks you whether your endpoint is interested in this status object. And if you return something like null or not interested, then you won't get any further events. Then there's a transform method, which asks you to transform that status to an I report, which is represented in the UI, in the review dialog. And at the end, you get a submit method, which does the real I/O and sending things to your server. So as you see here, the whole I/O, the whole server communication, and the wire format is completely exchangeable. So it's completely up to you whether you want to reuse what we have at Eclipse, or you want to go and implement your own system. So that's completely up to you. And that's so that's all for the IDE setup. So you get the unifying UI so that every project can now sign up to receive error reports. I've shown you customizable dialogues. I've shown you how you can customize the server communication and maybe even the wire format. So whatever you want to use is completely up to you. You've seen a 100% declarative approach and one that's, say, pretty close to 100% Java implementation. So again, if you have something complex to implement, it's completely up to you how you want to do that. And you also got a default implementation that brings a lot of new feature or interesting features with it, like remotely configurable filters, histories, caches, etc., pp. So these are all the details I don't want to explain in this webinar, but just to let you know that there is much more in there that you can just reuse with the declarative approach. Okay, so setting up AERI for your own RCP application. So this is a little bit more complex. So because there's only one flavor. So, and the flavor is 100% code. So there's no plugin XML, no discovery JSON file, and nothing that helps you to complete the setup just in 2 clicks. It's really a 100% code thing. So you need to configure your system yourself. But you have a lot of base components that you can reuse. So there's the base system for the error reporting, which defines a control flow and some domain concepts like reports, like filters, the wire format, etc., that you can reuse in your error report. And then there are IDE-specific things like the dialogues, the server communication, the mylib notifications, which will only work in the Eclipse IDE. So they are something that you can't reuse in your RCP application. I'd like to demonstrate how you can set up an in-house workflow. In-house workflow means you just send every error report that you receive just to your in-house server without asking the user for any feedback. So it's something that you definitely don't want to do that for an open source plugin hosted or installed by millions of users over the web, because you should really ask your user for permission. But an in-house setup might be completely different. You just send the error reports and your support team can fix those issues in the next release, and your users maybe even don't notice that there was something going wrong. So there are a few things you need to know. The first thing is you need a log listener. A log listener is basically the one that subscribes to the platform log events and forwards those log events to something that we call a workflow, or maybe a controller in different speak. The controller or the workflow is responsible for determining what to do with an error log. So for instance, if you want to have some notifications, then your workflow will now ask the UI to open some notifications or whatever. So that's all done in the workflow class. And then you need a server connection, as you've seen before, that actually does the I/O. And for your Eclipse RCP application, you need to do the initial wiring of the system. So there is no extension point that you can reuse there. So you need to do the wiring manually. And this is what we do in the E4 lifecycle class, where you have the post context create method, which we use to initialize the error reporting system in there. Okay, so how does it look like? I will start with a new project then. So just let me check. Okay, 5 minutes left, so not too much time in here. Okay, I will create a new plugin project that will be org webinar RCP. And this time I will create a rich client application with a basic Eclipse V application that does not have much in it. It's really, just let me start it. It's a view that has some basic tree item viewers in here. Oh, I did not specify the content. Okay, let me delete the project and do it again. New plugin project. Sorry for that. And yes, we want to have the rich client application. We want the RCP application, and we want to create a sample content and a lifecycle class. Okay, we finished that. We start the application by its product, and you see that this application has a sample item viewer here and some few dialogues like open a file dialog, etc. So what we do now is we go to the handlers, the open handler, and let's throw a null pointer exception here instead of doing any. And say, okay, demo. Now, when you click on that icon again, you will get a not that nice error pop-up saying, okay, something went wrong here. And yeah, so, and this is the event that you actually want to send to your internal server, right? So you see in the log file, it gets logged in the platform log. And this is where we, again, add our error reporting listener. So I will just briefly add the dependency to my utility package. That's the org webinar bundle. And I will just copy over the E4 lifecycle class here. That's what implements the lifecycle that we want to use for this presentation. And we just hand it over, put it in here. Yes, we want to override that class. Let's fix the reports. Okay. So, and that's basically it. So I will briefly go through it. We have 3 minutes left. So what we do here is we take the system control, we take our automated error reporting system context, which is an Eclipse context, and set the parent to the workbench context. Then we put into our dependency injection context the server connection, the silent server connection that just sends error reports. We have a pretty simple in-house workflow that we create in here. We configure a log listener that basically forwards things to our workflow, and that's it. So you see, the workflow is now a pretty easy one. So we use the event post system in Eclipse, which we use to have it called in the background thread, and then we got this status logged where we got the I status object. And then we just say, okay, let's submit it. So there's no UI, nothing you need to do. And it simply submits that thing. And the silent server connection submit is pretty easy. It transforms that to a JSON string, sends it via HTTP to my local host, and that's it. Okay. Well, that was rather quickly. I'm sorry for being that fast in that section, but we don't have that much time. So there are a few examples on the Eclipse Git repository that you can read and see how this actually works. And they also with own custom notifications, which are not Miley notifications, etc., etc. So that's something you can quickly find out yourself. So as you've seen, we have the error report is not part of AERI right now because there's really no size that fits all solution inside. So everything is quite different. But you have the liberty and the freedom to do it in the way how you want it to be. So you can send emails like OmniGraffle does. You can maybe just a remote log file is good enough for you. So you can just take everything and dump it to a log file. Or you can have the same setup that we use at Eclipse. So what we did as code trails, we rewrote the error reporting system that we have developed at eclipse.org and make this available for free for Eclipse plugins and even RCP applications. So if you go to ariacontrolflow.com, let me go there. So here, ARIA Control Flow sign up. You can just apply for your own error reporting project. So you just say, okay, your name is, my name is my key, my project, or my organization. Sorry. You can provide your email. That might be use one that actually works. very important and top secret password. You have to agree to the terms and conditions, sign up. Oops, okay, so the password needs to be a little bit longer than what I've used. So let's try to confirm that works. Okay, so then sign up your account was created, but then you will receive an email. And if you click on that email, you can simply start configuring your error reporting server. So it will take a few seconds. I will then just go to my local setup. So what you will get is basically the same UI that you have at Eclipse. So you see you have a project. There will be a webinar project in my case, where you configure the basic information like which packages you are interested in. You can set up email digests. You can have email bug tracking integration into your bug tracker, a favorite bug tracker like Bugzilla or Jira. And that's all for free. So you just have to sign up and can immediately start receiving error reports. So you got the webinar and everything you need to know. And that's basically it. So closing and concluding the session, you might have several questions about the client itself. So there is a wiki page which provides some information and some links, for instance, to the examples. You can always reach us via the Eclipse org forum or as on chat on Mattermost, Eclipse org. There we have an AERI channel where you can just chime in and ask your questions. And if you have any questions about setting up the automated error reporting service, feel free. So the webpage is controlflow.com/automated error reporting. Feel free to send any question to support ControlFlow or on Twitter to me or to ControlFlow and ask us whatever you need to know. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me right now or afterwards after the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel. To add very quickly, just a reminder that all of the Eclipse Neon webinar sessions will be available on YouTube at the Eclipse Foundation under the Eclipse Neon webinar playlist. So please do check those out if you do have questions or if you missed any of the components we talked about today. And like Marcel said, do send in your questions. We will be sure to answer them. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.